Welcome to the 25th episode of the Spiritual Context Podcast. Before introducing today's guest, I want to express my heartfelt gratitude to everyone who has supported this podcast over the past 6 months, to the guests who have generously shared their wisdom and experience, and to all of you who have listened, watched, subscribed, and shared these conversations. To mark this milestone, I'm releasing a special interview today. One of the very first conversations I recorded when this podcast was still just an idea. My guest today is Sherry Ritley, a dear friend and someone who has deeply influenced my own spiritual journey. Sherry is a private and ordinary person with an extraordinary inner life and a remarkable depth of devotion. What inspires me most about Sherry is the way spirituality permeates every aspect of her life. Her life has become a prayer. Whether she is speaking about mystical visions, meditation, forgiveness, death, or simply caring for a garden, everything seems to arise from the same source, a profound trust in God, an ever-deepening understanding of love. I hope you'll enjoy this conversation as much as I did. May it bring you closer to your own true self. Hi, Sherry.
Hi,
and,
Bishal.
and welcome. I wanted to say before we begin how grateful I am that we are doing this. You've been a spiritual guide to me, and you've been one of my best friends. And you and I have done practice together. We practiced together. I don't know. I think it's been more than a decade at this point. And you've seen me through very difficult times, and your guidance, your wisdom, and the stories you've shared have helped me tremendously during those times. So my intention for today is for this to be an expression of my gratitude and love for you, and also to be able to record some of the same wisdom and stories that have helped me, that you've shared, to record them. Now, what will happen with that recording, we don't know yet, but I'm tremendously grateful. So thank you so much, Sherry, for agreeing to do this.
And I want to say to you, thank you for asking, because our relationship has been an incredible gift to me. Just to have a young one on the path. One of my children kind of is, but it's to be able to share this with someone like you, to be asked, when you were going through things, to be asked for help and guidance is a huge gift to be asked. And this is a gift. So thank you.
Okay, so we'll start with this question has two parts. So first, I'd like to ask you about the presence of spirituality and religion in your childhood experiences. And maybe if you have some stories from childhood that contain some spiritual truth or spiritual insight or experiences. And the follow-up of that is, now looking back today, how would you divide the various stages of spiritual growth from childhood to young adult and moving on up until now, various stages of spiritual growth in your life?
Well, that's an interesting question, and it's a big one, right?
Mm-hmm.
As a child, obviously, I was very innocent and was very blessed that my daddy, who was kind of my love parent, had a connection to a church that I look back on now and realize, oh my goodness, that minister, Reverend Charles, he's like one of my angels. He was so unconditionally loving that as a child, when we'd leave church, he'd hold your hands. I just wanted to stay there. He'll hold them now, but and it was a very open, children. And another thing I realized as I was contemplating this is I had a more strained relationship with my mom, and I think my dad kind of did too. And she didn't come to Sunday school in the morning. It was just my sister and me and daddy going, and we never missed. And I would do anything at that church. I would sing in front of the church and got the pin for perfect attendance and all that. And I just thought Jesus was so amazing, and I adored him. And that was a blessing. And that, other things happened in childhood too, which I look back now and realize, wow, Karna, it was when I had horrible dental work that was very painful. Had lifted out of the body by angels, honestly. I could go, I had other things occur where I was able to be out of the body for that. Always, often, not when people passed, I was naive about it and didn't think much of it. But when some people would be asleep and I'd have a dream where I'd be walking and talking with someone and wake up to find that person had passed. I go, wow, that was interesting. Sometimes even like somebody like Bing Crosby or someone like that. And we just talked. And I look back on it now and wonder if there was an openness there and that soul was looking for someone to talk to. I don't know, but I just innocently and naively went with that.
Did you think these were in any way out of the ordinary, or did you think everyone has these kinds of experiences?
I didn't talk about them. I knew better than to talk about anything. I tried to say some things that were true to me, to my mom, and she didn't want me to. So that's an interesting thing. No, I kept it all to myself. Although I have one grandma who talked about seeing there was a baby passed and she saw angels hovering over the baby's crib.
Mm.
I had a grandma, this is my daddy's mommy. She had blessedly told me some things that made me feel okay and normal.
Mm-hmm.
There was my first husband's grandma when she passed. This is kind of indicative of how it was. I was sleeping and we adored her. She was fun. She bought us our first beer or whatever. So I'm playing on the beach in this dream, right? And she comes walking down the beach to me. And I go, oh, hi. And she said, come walk with me and talk with me, okay? And I went, oh, but I really want to play in the ocean. And we talked a little, but I see now that there was more she wanted to share with me, and I was still playing in the ocean. So that's kind of my life story, wandering around and not quite getting it, but it was there.
Hmm. Wait, do I understand correctly? Your grandma, she was someone who has already passed away, who came to you and wanted to talk to you?
This was my husband's grandma. It was the evening of her passing.
Oh, I see. Yes.
It was the evening of her passing. Yeah, that's how it seemed. That seemed to be a thing for this one, that upon passing, somehow my spirit was able to connect.
Right. Okay. And we'll talk more about that in a little bit later. Okay. So as growing up as a child, Jesus was present, and you loved the church experience. You loved your minister, and you loved the beauty that was present in the church. And then you also had some of these experiences, and what happens in the next stage.
Well, I grew up, I went to college, worked really hard to get a scholarship, and because I was born in 47 and nobody in the family had gone to college at that point. So that was cool. But as I got out in the world, I began to see that some Christians would blame, would hate on people because they weren't Christian. They would blame them for not knowing Jesus. They would say they were going to go to hell. And I started to meet people that were like Buddhists, and they were so amazing. And so I innocently and naively kind of blamed Jesus at that point in time for what human egos had done to his teachings. It was, if you look at Jesus's teachings, they're all love. And I know this now, but so that was a period for me. And yeah, so there came a time then when my first husband and I went we lived in one part of Oregon, but we happened to be in Portland. And we happened, you know how this happened to thing, where we happened to run into his absolute best friend, Peter, after whom we named our son Peter. And he said, "Oh, you guys, I just found this transcendental meditation. You have to do it." And coming from him, that's what we did. So and it was a huge gift. Transcendental, for me at that stage. One thing Maharishi said was, I want everyone to be clear of non-prescription drugs for a certain amount of months before you even begin, which was great because I was so needy that I would sometimes do things that I didn't want to do to be accepted in a group or whatever. So this gave me kind of a cool reason to turn from something I didn't like anyway. So because it was the 60s, it was quite the age of getting high and stuff. So we had TM for a long, long time. And I just, when I would meditate, wow, right? What a blessing to be back to meditating in however it comes to you, right? So.
How many years was that, TM?
How many years from the time we began?
Yeah, how many years did you stay with TM?
Oh, decades. Because I was 21 when I got married. It was shortly after that. When I married Dawn in my late 30s, I was still doing TM. In fact, I had come to a place where I was a little stronger, so I talked to him about it, and he thought it was a great idea, and he started doing it too. So it was that important to me still. There was a time, there was an experience. I know this is a different question maybe, but a very peak and meaningful spiritual experience that occurred when I was having my first son. And in part, I think I was open to that because of TM. And then we'd read Autobiography of a Yogi, which is Yogananda. And I had this, we had this. So my appendix ruptured and I was really, really sick when I was only 6 months pregnant. And they thought he would be born. This was 71, a long time ago. He would be born and not survive. And somehow he miraculously stayed in me for 3 more weeks. They never sewed up, they were allowing it to, it was a thing, they were allowing it to drain. And that was a sick one. But I got to come home for 3 weeks. And then I did go into labor. And they thought, well, he might have a chance of surviving if he can have a vaginal birth to stimulate his lungs. But I wasn't dilating. I was just laboring and stuff was coming out of the side of me from the appendix. And finally they said, well, we're going to have to do a C-section, but he probably won't survive it. And what we were able to do in that moment, my first husband was also a meditator. They turned off all those machines, which was huge. And we just held hands. I didn't call it this at that time. I call it this now because of Doc, but we just surrendered it all to God. We're not going to call parents. We're not going to tell anybody anything. We don't want any negative thoughts and worries coming. We're just going to stay here with it. And whatever unfolds. And we just held hands, and they got this huge surgery team together. They came to wheel me in and they did one last check. And the doctor goes, oh my gosh, she's fully dilated. I didn't feel a thing. Now that's a miracle, isn't it? That's just, God was trying to tell me something. So it seems. So that boy is, he's got 21-year-old twin boys now and he's still going strong. So that was a huge spiritual experience for me. Interesting, right? People think what could be the worst becomes the best, right? So that's the TM thing. But then going forward in that, I got so into it that I actually left Peter and his dad to go be, in the TM place, and there were some amazing experiences there. But I look back on it and wish I hadn't left my boy, searching for God somewhere out there when I have come to know it's right here.
Right. And both of those things, when Peter was being born, that depth of surrender that you and your first husband had, and then subsequently leaving both of them to pursue your spiritual path, those are not small things. Those are not something anyone can do or anyone does or anyone even thinks to do, right? That's already indicative of a very deep spiritual commitment. I don't know if you understood it and experienced it as such, but that's kind of the thing you would read in the stories of lives of saints. They leave everything. Like that's the most difficult thing to leave, your son, and your family. And you had that at that point, right? Whether it was the right thing to do or not, but the depth of devotion and drivenness that certainly was there.
It has to be the right thing because it is what it is. I've made amends,
Mm-hmm.
especially with my first husband and his wife. We're wonderful friends. And he said to me when I made amends, I was doing TM too. I understood,
Hmm.
and he had not been very attentive with Peter. And he said it felt like a gift in a way to have Peter. I wasn't done learning, but it's so interesting, Bishal, how I don't know why. I think my linear mind, I could put it on the side. I didn't really know why. I couldn't explain what was happening. I just had to go.
Mm-hmm.
It's the same when I found Doc. I just had to go.
Yeah, and I can understand. I certainly know that feeling. I've shared this with you before. I've always had this fantasy of leaving home, and I would talk about that as a kid. I'm gonna leave. I tell my parents, I'm gonna leave you, my mom especially. I'm gonna leave you and go enter a forest and become a wandering renunciant. Now, I now I again looking back, I see it differently. It's not I don't physically need to leave. It's more the attachment. But I certainly understand that depth of commitment that you don't know where it comes from. You just have to go. You just have to
It
go.
wasn't anything that I had ever heard of, honestly.
Mhm.
I mean, I did read Yogananda's autobiography, so that was kind of in there. But in fact, children were so important to me. All
Mhm.
my, all my, it was all about children. Starting, very young with my brother. I was only 8 when he was born, and 9 when Mom would leave me with him. And I just adored him, and always knew I wanted to be a teacher and be with kids. So it's interesting how somehow that I got pulled anyway.
Right. And yeah, it wasn't for the lack of love of your child, but rather just this irresistible pull.
I
Um,
like that.
yeah. And what comes next, the next stage after TM?
Mm, mm. Well, we did keep meditating, for years, and our son was born. My beloved husband, who I gained some strength and was able to, as my sweet friend told me, this time you're not going to go with somebody just because he likes you. I was so the desperation for God got mixed up in sort of a desperation for love, you know, I think human love, if you will. And so there was some at the, in the TM part when I was away, I allowed someone to come in and got back into the linear stuff and ended up with a sweet little racially mixed guy who's an amazing man now. My Dawn, who I've been married to now for some decades, thought another thing people told me, you'll never find anyone wants to raise someone else's kid. And my own mom didn't want me to bring him around because she had some racism in her. And Dawn thought it was so cool. He loved playing with my son, and we had that. And I needed to get stronger in other ways. So I kind of dealt with an overeating problem, and then I started martial arts. And, there was some strength there and different self-concept. And my way with my children was, so Dawn and I had a child, and he's my baby, Seth. And he was still at home, maybe 17. And my thing with my children was whatever they were reading, I would read, because I wanted to see what they listened to on the radio. I would listen to. I wanted to know what they were putting in their little heads, And my son Seth read a Dr. Hawkins book. And I picked it up, Power versus Force, or bought myself one. I'm getting chills. It's like I was like, this is Dr. Hawkins, right? Oh, I was sitting right at this desk and go, oh my, I would yell to Seth, oh my God. He is, what an incredible gift. Wow. And you know how Doc says everything is pulling you to itself? You're not, you think you're following. That's so how this life has been. It's kind of this mindless person getting pulled this way and that. This pull was so strong and so perfect. I was in my 50s by then, late 50s. And I was still working, taking care of babies and doing my doula thing. And the last lecture Dr. Hawkins gave out of Arizona happened to be in Long Beach, not far at all, hour and a half or something up that way. So Seth and I went up there, and so there I was. And I came home and I told Dawn, and then I found out there was going to be more lectures in Sedona. I said, I think I want to see this guy as often as I can. And then my job disappeared. The child I was taking care of, his mom came to me. She said, oh, we love you so much and we want to keep you forever, but I have to go full time and I can't afford it. So my mother's going to take over. So my job disappeared. And Don just looked at me, bless him. He's not a Dr. Hawkins student, but he's my rock. He said, just retire early. You're old enough to get Social Security. You can just apply for that and just do it. And it's been like 20 years now. I went to every single lecture and satsang from that point on with Dr. Hawkins.
Right, Dr. David R. Hawkins, who is also our teacher. So what was it about, first, the book, the Power versus Force book, that made you want to see the person? And then seeing him the first time, how was that? What made you want to see him again and again?
Some of the stuff that happened, I was very liberal, before I started to read Dr. Hawkins in a way. I had a church, and it was a Save the World church, if you will. It was a United Church of Christ, and the minister used to joke, we're Unitarians considering Christ, UCC. He gave me Jesus back. I don't know if that's in Power versus Force, but he explained how everything that Jesus taught is perfect, and how God is love and nothing but love. And that's what Jesus said. Love your neighbor as yourself. That's what Jesus said. It's helped me forgive my mom. It's like, So the other stuff is stuff that human egos added on, and it ended up in the Bible by human choice.
Right.
not because Jesus taught it, right?
Right. That which had led you to leave Christian church, you came to realize that that was the product of the human ego and not what Jesus himself had taught. Right.
And all the avatars, all of them, anyone like Dr. Hawkins, like Buddha, Krishna, I mean, they're all, we can just love them. And Dr. Hawkins would never tell anybody to follow him. He would try to, help them see what was best for them, what might work for them. Yeah. Wow. Wow.
Would you talk about when you were doing a surrender retreat during when you were visiting Sedona for a doc lecture, and you were doing the surrender retreat and you had this experience of Jesus Christ? Would you talk about those experiences and the question you asked Doc about them?
Yeah, I was on a surrender retreat. We used to call it surrender everything to God as it arises. And I still do that every week with people all over the world because of conference call, right? So that a version of that picture on the wall that has Jesus holding a child on his lap and says, "I'm with you always to the end of the world," was right next to where I was meditating. And it was kind of moving. You know how that will happen sometimes. It was just sort of in my consciousness. I kept wanting to sit in that same place, kind of. And I will never say, and Doc used to say this better, but it's not like if anything came to me or another thing spoke to me. It wasn't an otherness. It was a knowingness, an incredible revelation. And in that moment, I was the child on Jesus' lap. And I was, and I kneeled down where I was and put my face in the chair and wept and wept. It's just, he'd always been there. He always loved me, and it was like kind of remembering how that was when I was a little girl. It was amazing. So I got a little attached to that picture, but that was another spiritual turning point, if you will. I was already a doc student, but that, mm, yeah, and there was more too later.
Yeah, talk about the more.
um, so it's interesting how the vision is there, and almost sometimes the context of it is a little bit foggy, but I'm pretty sure it was in the context of being with the Buddha relics. There was some how they ended up here, I don't know, but I just feel so blessed for all these things that kind of came that I was able to be with in this lifetime. But Doc found out, and some Doc students were able to have some of the very high calibrating Buddha relics, um, and bring them to different places, and people could gather around them, and so they were close to me. I think in LA, and I had drove up, was sitting in this sweet little Buddhist temple, I guess it was. I just loved being there, and the Buddha relics were there, and I was meditating, and in that, um, I was what I like to do, and I did talk to Doc about this. I didn't mention that, but I like to go back sometimes to that vision of being on the lap of Jesus. Just settle into that peace, when I'm meditating, bliss, really. And I was doing that, and and Jesus reached down and pulled that little child, Sherry, up till I was right face to face. We are one. We are the same. Not. I don't have to see myself as a child on his lap. And it's interesting because when I talked to Doc about that first holy vision of being that, he said, just surrender everything to God. Just keep surrendering it all the time, which I did do. And then this arose, right? Ah, which is a oneness, a unity, I think. This was that. That was good. That was good.
So in the first vision, you were on his lap, a child, right? And you were crying. And in this vision, he picked you up and you were face to face with him and became one with him. Yeah. And you asked Doc about, you mentioned it briefly, the first vision. What was your question and what exactly did he say?
Well, so after I had been, on Jesus' lap and every meditation from that point on, I was just remembering it, who wouldn't, it's like running off to another place to find that bliss. When I was doing TM or something, it was just going back. But Doc does talk about surrender everything to God as it arises. And I was wondering if I needed on some level to surrender it, So I told him about it. He's so funny, I said, I've been on a silent retreat. He said, oh, good, keep it up. At first, he tried to be, but that's how it was with Doc. As soon as he understood my question, I said, I've had this holy vision and I wonder if this too, do I need to surrender? And he's like, what do you want to do? Chop it up and throw it away? And I said, no, I want to stay in it forever. And he went, then he got it, right? It's like, yeah, Doc. And he said, you dedicate it to the Lord. You stay in a surrendered state all the time. Are you willing to do that? Then you don't have to worry about anything. The Lord takes care of the rest. You don't know what you're going to be required to surrender. So you surrender to God. You can't program. There's a certain way of being in the world in which we stay surrendered. It's an attitude. Whatever is, is. So there's nothing to resist, nothing to surrender to. It's a very yin way of being. Adopt a yin way of being, a yin surrender attitude. If you forget how to do it, every time you pass a mirror, you go, I surrender to thee, O Lord Most High. Amen. It's not something difficult. And in the beginning, I had that. I surrender to thee, O Lord Most High. I mean, I had that like taped to all the mirrors around the house. In case I would forget what I know. I use that. It's just almost like a life mantra for me now, which is very perfect.
So it's in a way, if I understand correctly, it's neither something to hold on to, nor something that you need to consciously be like, oh, I don't want to go there, I want to let it go, but rather it's a matter of dedication, matter of intention. Is that correct?
I think that's how it is. Yes. Oh, like for this one now, when there's a holy vision, I just say thank you.
Right.
Thank you. And I have learned, because I didn't let that vision go at all. But after Doc told me about that, and I started thinking, I think it's just be with it. Let it be, And it kind of did dissipate to a certain extent. And there were other things to come up. I think there were things I needed to work on, in my ego still, that were popping up. But then in however many months or a year or whatever it was, the next, there's this next incredible vision. So thank God, right?
Mhm. Yeah, I think I understand. It's instead of being attached to the vision, almost like in my case, I would be almost greedily because I want that bliss. Now the orientation is more of worship and dedication to the Lord and being it with it as you would with a divine gift, without that attachment, greedy attachment.
No matter what arises,
Right, right.
divine vision. It might not,
Hmm.
and I that's what the blessing of life now is. Um, Whoa, sometimes things will just stop me because of their incredible beauty. And what were the hummingbirds doing yesterday? It's like, thank you. But sometimes I'm just changing the sheets, and if that doesn't feel holy, and I notice that I'm going, I just look at that and start singing, a song. Mhm.
Hmm.
I surrender all, whatever.
Hmm. Right. Right. So, yeah, it reminds me of the Doc quote. If your attitude towards everything becomes a devotion, then divinity reveals itself.
That one,
Yes.
good
Yeah.
remembering.
Yeah. Um, what say say this is 100 years down the road, right? Um, and someone is asking you 100 years down the road, someone did not meet Doc in person and has only read Doc's books, and 100 years down the road, they're asking you, how was it? How was it to be in the presence?
Mm. In the beginning, I remember the very first lecture, I was saying, he doesn't even remember what he's talking about. I was very linear, it's like, he's losing his way. I was expecting a lecture, I think, like college or something. And so I kind of got a sense in the beginning. And then I remember some of the first lectures. I had my notepad and I was jotting down, and some of us were, like, did you get that? What was that? You write that. I'll write. We were just trying to capture everything in a linear way, right? With the like this. And I remember people always going up on stage and asking to be blessed, and he'd say, "It's already happened. You're here. It's in the field." I remember him saying that in the beginning. And then there came a time, I did go to a lot of lectures and satsangs, when I just kind of didn't feel like doing that. And I was just sitting in the presence, if you will. And whenever someone asked him to bless them, he would say, "God bless you." And I feel it right now. I would feel this incredible sweetness just flowing up every time he said it to anyone. And I had stood in line quite a few times at going to ask for the blessing, right? The transmission or whatever. And every time in line, I would meet someone, have an incredible experience with them, and in line, but I wasn't making it up to Doc. There was a lot of people. Mhm. The one time I did make it up was this time that I was with him after the Holy Vision, interestingly enough. And I had let go of that need to say, bless me, make me special, because I had already been able to experience that sitting in the audience, if you will. It was great.
Would you have an afterglow? But you went so frequently. Um, I know other doc students who would be there and experience this incredible state, and then they would come back and either be in that state for quite some time. Some people would for months. Some would go in the other direction, being in such a high state. Many difficult things would come up for them to process, so they would feel like they're going in the other direction for a while. Did you have anything like that?
The one thing that I remember about that, when I had been going for a while, was because after that time when I had had the incredible meditation experience and the vision of Jesus and time with Doc, that time, I was so blissed out. I don't think I might have even had been driving, because I there were a few times driving home from the lecture was kind of ooh, but blissed out. Um, I have this, you might have even met my gardener. We've had the same gardener for decades, and he's very, to himself. And he was in my backyard. It's the only time I have ever hugged him. I came home from that and I went, oh, Ken. I had this vision of Ken kind of standing like a warrior and protecting the house, and that. So then Dawn takes me out to dinner, and this guy is wheeled in to a table nearby. I was feeling him now. He's completely disabled. I'm not even sure he could talk. I think they were feeding him. And I had this incredible surge of energy just flowing between the two of us. And I said, Dawn, I feel like I need to go speak to him. And Dawn said, don't go speak to him. We're in a restaurant.
Mm-hmm.
And I think he was right, because it was a very blissful dinner. That night, he came, and he, I don't remember a lot of details about him, but he's a very high being. And he came to me in a dream, and we had time together. And so that was quite an afterglow, that I was very open. Wow. I haven't thought about him in a long time.
The person in the wheelchair, he came to you later in the vision at night. Yeah.
I wonder details about his, I wonder if his helpers knew, or you never know. But so that was an amazing and fun afterglow.
Mm-hmm.
There were times too when things would come up, not all the meditations, even in Sedona, were blissful.
Mm-hmm.
Ego stuff it wants to hold on to, that we try to work on letting go.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I remember also, and I love the story of the What a Wonderful World song. Whenever it was played on the radio, you would start crying while driving.
It was a time. It's still there. I mean, it's a very, very sweet time. And I remember it with great love, that there was just a time where this heart was so open to love that things would make me cry, including, and I think to myself, what a wonderful world. You see friends shaking hands, saying, how do you do? They're really saying, I love you. So somebody figured out that when that song came on, I would cry because it was so sweet. And I'm driving, and they like throughout the day, every half hour or so, they put it on. They were teasing me with it. It was okay. We were having fun.
When I first came to know Doc's teachings, and I kind of had similarly high experiences, let's say, and felt very high and felt like I was in a very good space, and would also feel I was crying a lot and everything would stop me on my tracks. And I think that in my case, the way I see it is, it's not so much that that ever goes away, but rather that it becomes more diffused and more integrated, such that it doesn't feel so intense all the time, but it's always, and then we become more familiar with it and more used to it, but it's always there. Do you think that's your experience, or is your experience more of a fluctuation of up and down, up and down?
No, absolutely what you said. Yes, it's more integrated. And there are things that, like recalling really high experiences bring me to tears a little today. I mean, there are definitely things, and there were, but you're right, it's more integrated, and I'm happy for that, because I feel like we can carry it with us more comfortably and easily. It's when I do go out into the world, it's my intention to see people and love on them, whatever I see coming from them, just ask them how they're holding up, or, just love on, talk to them. What do you think? Do you like this? Should I get that one? Have you ever tried it? And then if they want to, then they can start talking, and seeing little kids and their mommies and stuff. I'm glad that it doesn't stop me in my tracks, because I wouldn't be able to go very far, would I? Sometimes the doggies on the street will get me, but
Mm-hmm. Would this might be a good time for you to read that poem if you'd like, the poem Wandering.
Mhm. Thanks for reminding me of that.
Yeah.
And it's a great blessing also to understand. I think there was a time when I had thought, oh my goodness, I'm losing my memory. And it's not like that. It's more losing the mind altogether, in a way that the memory's all still there. It's just, it sometimes takes something to remind us, right? So here we go. I don't know how long ago I wrote this. I wrote a poem, and I entitled it Wandering. All my life, I was wandering around the mountain, sometimes going up, sometimes not, getting lost for years in darkness, sometimes lost in beauty, looking, searching, praying for a path to the top, but captured by the thought that I was in control, distracted by the thought of saving the world, wandering, chasing, avoiding the light. Then there was a true light, shining clearly on a straight path going up. Moving toward it, there was a voice pulling me. As I walked in this light, the path unfolded before me. Though narrow, the truth was pulling, keeping these feet ever on that path. I found others on this path, and we fell in love, right? They hear his voice. The joy of sharing keeps us strong. Together, we journey, grateful for the gift of this light, grateful for the gift of this life. Lord, I'm coming home. No more wandering.
Thank you, Sherry.
Yeah, good job, Sherry.
If this question, you've already seen the question, but it's asking about, what do you think has been the most important spiritual lesson or learning for you in this lifetime? And the way I'm asking the question is, what would you title your autobiography? So you can talk about both.
One title I came up with, Opening to Divine Love. And I thought, Then I thought, Understanding Love. I don't know. Autobiography. Wandering. No. No, I like the destiny to be in the title, maybe, right? What would you name yours?
Oh, I asked the same question to my students in class, as a way of reflection, especially in my meaning of death class. I asked the same question, and the way I answer it for myself, often to my students, is I say I would steal Gandhi's title, which is The Story of My Experiments with Truth. That seems true to a certain degree about my own life, the story of my experiments with truth. But the two titles you suggested, and this leads me to opening up this question, had to do with love. So how has your understanding of love evolved over the years, and how do you see it now?
Wow, it was such a journey. I had some experiences as a young girl that confused me about love. I loved, my dad was perfect and unconditionally loving, and my minister was. But there were others, that interjected some physicality into it, even when I was little. And we didn't get to talk about things when we were in my era, little girls. So I did end up feeling confused about love and desperate for it always. That's one of the reasons I think I always loved children, because when my brother was born, I was 8 years old, and I had this thing to, he loved me, I loved him, and this is still going till today. And he's even said that I was old enough to shelter him from some of the things in the house. So there was always the spiritual pull, and I would melt into it. But even in that last adventure away from my first husband and son, and I was having experiences incredible. I would be so in the space that I could jog in the forest with bare feet and never hurt my feet, and deer would come and run next to me. It was like, it was an incredible space. But the little ego inside of me still had this confusion about love, and I was very naive. So in that space, I allowed myself kind of to be taken advantage of, which I allowed it. So there's no victim there, but I had more to learn about that. I had to find some strength too. So it was kind of awesome to come to the place where I could see the strength of love. And the doc talks about that. We're not wishy-washy, let's turn the other cheek and keep hitting me. And, that's not love. That you stand for the truth. Yeah. And I think martial arts kind of helped me in that. And they, in martial arts, we talk about the yin and the yang. It comes from the Buddhist temples. What we do, it's beautiful. Slow versus fast, just some of the things that they teach there. So what's eventually revealed is that all things are God. There's nothing but love. God is love, right? Yay. Do for them what you would want them to do for you, is how I was able to love on my mom, right? Just to be with her and hear her, oh, it must have been hard for you, Mom, instead of always wishing she would hear me, right? So, no, you just love people as they are. They could do better, they would. That's a dark thing, right? Love. And I just, the idea, God is love, nothing but love. Wow, right?
So initially, let me see if I understand correctly. You were always attracted to love, to giving and receiving love. But initially there was a misunderstanding in that love was mixed in with some naivete, which you thought love meant you would allow others to take advantage of you, or maybe there was some passivity mixed in with it too. And over time you had to learn that no, love is also discerning. Love is also strong, which comes from the martial arts, and it stands up for the truth, and it does not allow that which is not of integrity to take advantage of you, that is not loving towards oneself.
Exactly right. My middle son's father, he was there on the retreat, but he had a very hard life. And because of that, I thought, oh, he had he might do something, but he had such a hard life. And what it took for me with him was he finally did get violent one time. And Akeem was that's when I got strong. It was interesting now looking back on it. I could find strength for my child, but not for myself. So to protect my son, then I just immediately began looking for the job and the place to live that could take us away from that. So, strength comes in little doses, right?
Right. Right. Love is strong. Love is not a
Yes.
weakness. Compassion is strong. It's not a weakness. Yeah. Hmm.
It's
And
okay to love yourself.
right, right, exactly. Yeah. You were able to find that strength out of your love for your child, for your son, which you were not able to find for yourself. Um, yeah. And you mentioned briefly about forgiveness, in relationship with your mother. Can you say more about that if you're comfortable? You don't have to go into the backstory, but the process of forgiveness, doing unto others what you would have them do unto you.
Right. It was a difficult life. Being with her, she was and what I came to learn honestly was because of Doc, that people are what they are. If they could do better, they would. Everybody is doing the best they can, but they're at different levels. And I came to see that my mom lived in anger her whole life, and and my siblings didn't really want to be visiting her when at the end of her life, and I said I'll do it, and um, I came to realize that she hardly ever had any fun or happiness or joy because of that anger. And when I offered, which meant that love wasn't being offered to her much. And so, in spite of when I offered her love and understanding, um, like if she said a real negative thing about me, I'd say that must have been really hard for you, Mom. I hope you forgive that girl who did that and just love me as I am now. And oh my gosh, it just softened her for a minute. Softened her, right? I think she asked me to forgive her for getting angry and not understanding or something. I mean, it's like miraculous, right?
Yeah.
Love
Yeah.
can, what love can do. Hmm, sweet mama. And she worked hard before she passed.
Right. You wanting her to love and accept you, and when you were able to provide that to her, to love her and accept her exactly as she is, instead of wanting her to be different than what she is. Um, right.
Exactly. I was kind of doing to her the same thing she had always done to me.
Right.
But I mean, in my mind, I wasn't, because I would still have them over for Christmas, even though we weren't welcome there because they didn't want anyone to see the racially mixed kid. And, this was not my daddy. My daddy passed and she had another husband. So it was interesting how her match was more like her the second time. But anyway,
And it is so subtle, that position that we hold. We want others to, that it's so difficult to see that we do the same thing in very subtle ways to others that we say they shouldn't be doing to us. Um,
mhm.
right, to when we want someone to accept us fully, yet we are not unaccepting of them. It's very subtle and very difficult to see.
Yes. Did I
Yeah.
accept that you were part of her? No,
Mhm. Right.
that's
And that
exactly.
and that you were able to see that and love your mom exactly as she is in her later years. That's pretty amazing.
It took a while. I got in the habit of always listening to Dr. Hawkins lectures in my car, and it was about an hour and a half drive to be with mom. And there came a time when I was doing that almost every day towards the end. And at one point, I was listening to it, just came to me, do for her what you want her to do for you. It's like, whoa, Jesus has been saying that all along, hasn't he? Wow.
So would you say that coming to correct this misunderstanding of love, and come to the correct understanding of love, that has been one of the major spiritual lessons this lifetime?
Exactly that everything is unfolding perfectly. And at age 77, I can look back and see, oh my goodness, how the fact that we're in this house on this street, the way this is the sweet, quiet street. And as the city gets busier, it unfolded so sweetly and perfectly. I did every little thing like that. Yeah. Wow. So not to, for me, it's like not wondering why, just accepting and loving whatever comes up. And I had further work to do on that with my daughter-in-law. I helped her a lot with the boys. I was up there a lot, and I knew everything about babies. I'm a pro. I'm a doula and a teacher, and she could, even when I didn't criticize what she was doing, I would think, why doesn't she teach those boys manners? And she didn't like me very much, and another doc student friend of mine helped me sort of work on that on the side, pray to have any power I may have given her back and give her back any of her power that I may have taken. And I committed to being with her and if I noticed any judgmental thoughts, I was going to turn them around. So the next visit, I went, and this was before she got sick, which was a great blessing. I did just that. I watched my mind. And when the boys would do something and, or she would do something that I thought wasn't good for them, the boys are my grandsons. And if I noticed the thought, I would stop, turn it around and pour out love as best I could. Just love Mary. Hi, Mary. Love Josh and Brendan, the boys. And I just kept doing that. So I was kind of in silence a lot that visit. And after a day or so of that, when the boys went to bed, she sat me down and asked me to tell her about my spiritual path. For no linear reason, as far as we hadn't been talking about it. I mean, it was like, and I even said, because I was trying to do this held back thing and just love. And I said, no, you wouldn't want to hear it. She said, yes, I do. I asked.
Mm-hmm.
So I got to talk to them about that. And then the next morning, a good friend of her called and invited her to Center for Spiritual Living, I think it was. And I heard her on the phone talking to her friend, and she goes, oh, that's cool. That kind of sounds just like what my mother-in-law was saying last night. Thank you. Isn't that great?
Yeah. And that's a perfect illustration of how even when we don't verbalize, when we don't say things, our internal state affects who we are with, affects the unfolding of reality. And when you held judgments, she was resistant. And when you let them go, suddenly space opened up.
Isn't that amazing? Just a few days too, right? Thank you, Brian. That's Brian Grandin, who doc student became a minister. He helped me with that idea of how to do that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. What are some of the daily practices for you now?
Bishal, I don't want to sound trite or anything yet, but because we pray this all the time, I just really live my life as a prayer as best I can. Noticing if there's a prayer that I wouldn't want, a negative thought or whatever it is, a resistance, and working with it. But pretty much I am able to do this because I'm retired, and I devote my day to spiritual groups and holy company, helping with, I could name the groups. We do 12 steps to enlightenment. The 12 steps are amazing. And everyone is addicted to their ego, we think. That's pretty true. So I do that every morning, and Tuesday there's a conference call where we read a doc book together, and we have our Monday group, right? Yeah, we have a Monday group that's wonderful, and Sundays are really amazing because I have so many groups on Sunday. It's just what I love and what I live for. And there's, I do a lot of housework and shopping and stuff like that too, and meditating and walking in the garden.
Mhm. Um,
That's spiritual practice for sure.
right. And so what does a typical meditation session look like for you?
It depends. That's a really good question. You mean sitting down with my eyes closed or
You
walking
you
around
can
doing
answer for both. You can answer for both.
Yeah, there's less differentiation between them. There are times, like even this morning, I was in silence for a long time and it was wonderful. I was thinking about my life and all these things were coming to me because I was about to be talking with you. And then something came up that seemed like a good idea. And I attended to that thing. I don't have as much of a resistance to go to moving in and out. Um, but so what I would do if I was staying in silence and sitting, I would bliss out sometimes maybe, and or something. I would notice myself thinking about something. I've even noticed the head will sometimes turn and the eyes will be like cast down even though they're closed, and then a thought stream is coming, so then I lift my head and just look at the thought stream. There's a lot of things I use. I love mantras probably because of all my years of TM. I surrender to thee, O Lord Most High. Om. We can breathe Om. We can breathe Om all the time. That's kind of fun. Haven't thought about describing meditation.
You kind of went there.
Right. Oh, are we meditating now? Always. Yes. And it's definitely holy visions and bliss at times. And
Right.
then we give thanks when they come. Yeah.
Right. So it seems like you notice whenever, whether in sitting meditation or as you're out and about daily in your daily life, whenever you notice any constriction of any sort, any resistance, or even a thought stream beginning to arise, you just work on letting it go. Would
Or
that
look at
be look at it? Okay. Um,
it.
do
When you witness it, it tends to disappear.
and you're able to do that, to gain that distance from identification with the thought to being the observer witness of the thought fairly quickly with most things now.
Mhm. Some thought streams go longer. I noticed this wasn't a sitting meditation, but it was a really sweet meal that my husband and I had on Father's Day. And some of the helpers, beautiful young women, dressed kind of sexily, and I noticed myself asking Don how it was for him to see that. Did it, get his attention? And I was noticing her, and I noticed that in me, and she was very beautiful. So when we walked out, I told her, "You are so beautiful," because I know, yeah, and she got a very sweet smile. So for me, that was kind of hmm, adding the yin to the yang, almost, to make it a full circle. Not to let go of anything that might have seemed judgmental.
Mm-hmm. Right, right. And that's similar to turning it around or finding love there. Yeah. And this might be a good time also to talk about how um, you've kind of mentioned it a little bit before, this practice of pouring out love. Can you talk more about that?
Here, there's a lot of energy here for whatever reason. And it's more fun when it's here, but here. Yeah, it's kind of, I can imagine it, begin to imagine it. And this happens actually in meditation too sometimes. If thought comes to someone in family or whatever, imagine it just pouring light, beautiful love pouring from the heart, sometimes from here. This is also almost more energetic from here. Just soft, gentle love, pumping as a heart pumps. Don't you love how the heart never stops? Just that's how we want to be with love. So it seems to me.
Mm-hmm. And you do that with people who come to mind when you're meditating, but also as you go about your day, as you see people, as you meet people.
Sometimes, yeah.
Yeah. And when I've been with you, when I met you in person, when I've seen you in person, I also notice how everything you do, for instance, I remember the apricot tree in your garden, and the way you related to that tree with that love and devotion. And I can see it in your face right now, the love and devotion for it. And then the way you held a fruit, the way you held an apricot, um, the love, and it was like a prayer. Holding an apricot was like a prayer. And the way you when you left home, the way you would close the door, the garden gate, that was a prayer. And the way you, as you would begin driving, that was a prayer. It was like everything literally seemed like you were praying all the time. And there might be verbal prayer related to it, but even if not, the attitude seemed like constant state of prayerfulness.
Oh, thank you. That sounds great to hear. And also, don't forget that the hummingbirds would build nests in that apricot tree right outside the kitchen window, and then raise
Right.
babies right in front of my eyes. So, well, the mind is much quieter now, and I feel bubble-headed sometimes almost. And because there's not a lot of thinkingness, and we're so used to thinking about all that we have to do and getting it ready. So I always stop before I carry my bag to the car, and just stop. If there's anything I need to know, tell it to me now again. And then I bless the house going out, giving thanks that we're always, always, always divinely guided and protected. Nothing but love. Bless all that. Get into the car. Course in Miracles. This holy instant I give to thee, be thou in charge. For I would follow thee, certain thy direction brings me peace. And I do that in the driveway, and to make sure that the garage door is down, so that I don't drive a half a block and go, did I shut the garage door right? There's that too. Yeah, and interestingly, when my white dragon local moved, and now we have to drive on the freeway to another part of San Diego, and I thought, am I going to be up for that? I got used to it. You just give it to God, and yeah, I feel very, very capable of doing that. Yeah.
Mhm. How, so would you say that on a day-to-day basis, is there less noise and more silence in your mind? So for instance, when I often think about I think about thinking, and I think about how other people's minds are. As I go about my day, there is usually a commentator that's speaking, usually. And it's a matter of whether I'm paying attention to it or not. And sometimes I am really paying attention to it. Other times the commentator can go on and I'm not paying attention to it. I can be more attuned to the silence. In your case, how is it? How is your inner state?
It's interesting. One of the things that's unfolded, which sounds like just like a little old lady in a way, is I will actually talk to myself at home if I'm home alone. I don't do it so much out. If a thought comes. I think I notice thoughts pretty soon when they arise. But if it's something that wants to worry, or something like worry about what am I going to say when I'm with Bishal, right? I just say that's okay. It's all, everything is fine. That's a good one. I try to honor the thought, but not let it stay too long,
Mm.
into a story.
Right, right. So the way you speak, it seems like silence is the default, and you notice when thoughts arise. Whereas in my case, thoughts are the default, and I notice, oh, today it's silent.
Yeah, yeah, that's how it was for me not long ago. Yeah,
Mhm.
this stuff. I am old, and I've been doing this for now.
Yeah, yeah. And so would you talk about, because you've mentioned this to me before, would you talk about your experience of time and how that has shifted?
It's so funny, isn't it? Time cracks me up. We're captured on the carousel of life. Sometimes I think, oh boy, I get to go cut fruit for breakfast now and make the beds. It's like the same kind of things every day. That's why holy groups are so wonderful too. They highlight your classes. Yeah, it's time. It feels, a lot of people will say this, even not spiritual students, that time seems to speed up when you get older. Um, I don't know about that, but I feel like going out, like I'm gonna get on the freeway, I'm gonna go to White Dragon, warm up, practice, take a class, and have a lesson for 3 hours. This body, right, is gonna go through all that, and then I'm gonna drive all the way home. And it's like as I go out, as I'm blessing the house, I feel the coming in. It's almost as if they're happening together. And as I pull into the driveway at the interval, I go, wow, there it is. It's um yeah, that an good answer?
It does, it does. And it sounds, I can intuit. I can kind of dimly intuit what that is because I felt like that. It's almost, yeah, when I get into my car at work to go home, it's almost when I get into my car, I'm already home. Um,
Right.
it's almost as if the future is already here. I'm already home. And the other part of it is sometimes I think that many people have this experience. They just don't experience the passage of time. You get into your car and next moment you're home. Um,
Right.
it,
It's when Doc's playing in there too. If
right.
the traffic slows down, I'm like, oh, I can hear more Doc.
There's less of a resistance, I think, as the resistance to the passage of time decreases, time just it gains a different quality, the passage of time. Um, so it seems to me.
And
And
when you're young, it's also true when you have a lot of things to do in the world. It's you need to be more in the mind, I think. you know I don't know. Hmm. I had pretty nonlinear jobs. I was lucky in a way. Being working with kids and loving on them and stuff.
um, do do you intuit what you need to let go or what you need to work on for the next stage in your own spiritual growth?
Not 100% sure about that. I sometimes wonder, you know, if I would be need to or be willing to just let it all go. Um, mm, I don't know, like stop doing all the jobs, but it's like I can't think at this point of any good reason to stop doing whatever I do. And if that day arises, then it's going to arise on its own. It won't be me choosing it or working on it, probably, right?
But you mean to the degree to which you are engaged with the external world, like going for martial arts or going out to
Right.
things,
Just gonna sit
withdrawing more and more.
down in the garden and meditate, and that's that.
Mm.
It could happen. I guess I kind of I know about angels and heaven and the other side, and I'm not worried about that. I look forward to it in a lot of ways. Yeah. I just want to do whatever it is I'm here to do. I don't think it's necessarily about, you know, enlightenment. I think, like Doc always said, we're already enlightened. Just stop being unenlightened. We have our enlightened moments, don't we? And it's all perfect to me. Yeah, I guess there's no particular thing that I'm working on. Letting go of it at this point. I wonder about things. It's a lot of work keeping the body up.
As you go about your day, do you? I don't. So in my case, I don't feel as identified with the body as I go about my day. I don't feel like I'm a body walking around, but there is still a localization of identity, as if I'm a like I'm a torchlight, and awareness is coming out of the torchlight from a localized area. Does that make sense? Is that how is your experience? Do you feel like you are still a separate, discrete, isolated identity, or do you feel that that's gotten thinner and thinner?
And definitely thinner sometimes. And one of my favorite things, trying to explain this to Sifu, is I love doing forms for a long, long time because they get really embedded in your long-term, in your body memory. Which and plus when I do a form I've had for some years, I get really wonderful details, from Sifu. And then the form can unfold of its own without body awareness, if that makes sense. And it's almost like the being in the field as the body moves. I love that. Yeah, I love that. Otherwise, that when you're working on a new form or working on details that Sifu gave you, you really have to think about them and notice if you're doing them. And so it's more linear. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. Yes. Yeah. And I know it's been an hour and a half, but I have a couple of questions. The first, if you would talk about, you kind of mentioned it, but your experiences with death. I know a few in particular when you were with your mother-in-law, Dawn's mom, as she was passing, and then later when you were driving and there were accidents happening. So would you talk about them and how they have influenced your view of death?
And if anyone does listen to this and is concerned about death, I just got to tell you. So one of the most amazing things about Don, not only that he adored my child, his mother, a long-time devoted Catholic, I thought she wasn't going to like me at all. Been divorced twice, had a child from each marriage, and the little one was racially mixed. And when he took us to Cleveland for the first time, she took my Akin and ran him up and down the block and introduced him to everyone. This is my grandson. She was my Dawn had the most unconditionally loving mom on the planet. And so then we were blessed to be near her when she was close to death. I'm looking at the picture right now. She was close, but she was in her wheelchair, and I knelt down in front of her and put my head in her lap, and we went together. We together there with it. We were just in this incredible light of paradise. It was her paradise, but I was able to experience that with her, and she said in the physical, "Is this it?" to me, and I said, "I think it might be." And we stayed, and my husband was there, and he knew something was going on. That's why I have a picture of that. It was amazing. It was so beautiful. God bless Mother Mary. What an angel. She's definitely such an angel in our lives. She looks over that Dawn. Always has. It wasn't her moment in that moment, but it was kind of a reassurance, maybe for Dawn too, because he was so attached to that mama, not wanting her to leave the body. And she could see, and I was blessed to see that with her, how beautiful it is to leave the body. Wow, right?
Yeah. And it's amazing to me that you were both in the same space and you both knew that if we were there together.
We knew we were together, and we even the body said a thing,
Right, right.
Is this it?
Yeah, and Dawn
Think it
could
might be.
intuit that something is going on. Yeah.
We were, perhaps my being there helped her in some way, except that this is it. And it's pretty awesome, right? The
Mhm.
last thing, she died on her birthday, her 100th
Wow.
birthday.
Wow.
She was born on Christmas Day in front of a fireplace, however. And her last words, you know what they were? Happy birthday to me.
Oh. Wow. And your stories about being near the accidents.
So Dr. Hawkins has told stories. He was in super high state. I'm not saying I'm anything like where he was, but he had seen accidents on the side of the road and felt an energy pour into the accident. And he believed that people were injured and calling for help and all this. And he was like a conduit of the love of God, to pour into these people. And so I had heard those stories. And there was a time when Angel Joyce now, and I were driving home from Sedona after a wonderful, amazing retreat. And it was nighttime and a little bit, maybe even a little bit rainy. And I began to feel all this energy pouring out of me, pouring, or into me, I came to discover. I assumed, because I'd heard what Doc said, that this, and then we turned the corner, we could see an accident in the meridian, but the helpers were already there. It wasn't it what it was their souls were lifting from that accident. Their souls were rejoicing. There was so much love and light and beauty uh, on the release of those souls from that accident, and somehow I was able to share it and feel it. It wasn't anything coming from me to them, it was coming from them to me, I think, or however that works, I don't know. But um ah it's a beautiful, beautiful release if one has a relationship with God. Yeah.
When I've heard you use the term before, Sherry, and I kind of know what you mean, but if you would speak to it, you call it truth juice, and it's this energy. Another friend of mine, another doc student friend of mine, he called it liquid love. Uh, what is it like experientially? How do you experience it? Where do you experience it?
Straight up the spine, there's something here, and yeah, it's beautiful. What a kundalini, I don't know what it is it kundalini? Was that what that's
Yeah,
called?
yeah. He preferred the term spiritual energy to
Yeah,
the
it's
exotic term. Yeah.
right. Well, the way I came to name it truth juice is that when I started muscle testing, especially sometimes, friends that are going through something, there's some pretty important things, and they won't ask me to muscle test. So I clear myself. And so sometimes when I will muscle test something, I'll feel that energy shoot up my spine. And then I know that that's strong. It's like a reinforcement of the strong, if that makes sense. Like,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah. It seems to come up like a resonance to things that are true, things that are beautiful, things that are heartfelt. It's like a resonance within, and it comes up as that. Um,
Feeling of
okay.
that before one weeps sometimes too. I've
Mhm.
noticed, like when I was telling the story of Mama Mary, and our, when I start to feel weepy, I'm feeling that typically too. Yeah.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Would you talk about the knowingness that the Holy Spirit has your back?
What was a concern? I don't remember. Whatever it is, it's gone. There was something. I was holding it in mind and maybe praying, asking for guidance, be with me and help me to see this in truth. And then, yeah, it's right. It's, for some reason, it's right here. I got you. And I just laughed and felt this sweet energy. And it's like, it, we're in the world. We've got blinders on. It looks like a mess sometimes, or, it seems challenging, but Holy Spirit got our back. And I got you. And I just laughed and felt so joyful and thankful. We're always divinely guided and protected. That was the knowingness. But then what happened that made it even more fun, when I got to White Dragon and I was working on something and my forgetter was working good, and I was saying, "Oh, Sifu, I just lost my way in this form." He said, "I got you, Mrs. Ritley." And I was like, that sounds familiar. And he easily showed me.
So now you have this knowingness that in all things, the Holy Spirit's got you.
Always, yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
If we slip into forgetfulness, we'll get another reminder now.
Mhm. Do you have time for one more question?
I'm good. Yeah.
Okay. How are you handling body issues, including health challenges at this time? What does that look like? Practicing with that spiritual practice look like?
That's a really, really good question. And that might have been what was on my mind, Um, we know that what we hold in mind tends to manifest. We know this to be true. We know that Dr. Hawkins, in his lifetime, let go of many, many physical issues, and as have I, Um, but it's also true that at a certain age, protoplasm is going to slow down and stop, right? That's kind of the nature of the body. And I guess what I right now, because it's so important, and it's very important still for Don. He works very hard on his martial arts and his body and running, and he's in really good shape. Me, it seems like there's things will crop up, my knees, my hips, Achilles, wrist. It's like, and I do my best at letting them go, but sometimes I wonder, do I just go with it? And I don't think I believe that. I keep trying, but not in the same way I once did. I once did really would like work on affirmations. You know what I mean? Like, I'm an infinite being, only subject to what I hold in mind, and I'm not subject to this or whatever. It's kind of yin and yang. Sometimes it's very present, and sometimes I just forget about it for a while. It's a really good question. Do you think there comes a time when we just let go of thinking about changing or healing the body?
I think what you said was correct in my experience too, the yin and the yang, because yeah, I feel like with myself, I am more in the yin and accepting, oh, this is how things are, and that's fine. I can be completely and totally at peace if this never heals. If this is how things are, so be it. And this does not disturb my peace. And at other times, perhaps I've been more deeply examining what are the conditions, what am I holding in mind, what needs to be let go. And sometimes I'm doing both. But yeah, maybe there is a ebb and a flow.
And sometimes miraculously, when you don't think, for me, when I don't think about it, an amazing idea will come to me that's very helpful,
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Try
And
this, yeah, light thing on your knee at bedtime, so that an achy knee doesn't wake you up at night, or whatever it might be. Yeah.
Mhm. Right, right. Ways of healing show up. Yeah, yeah. Um, is there anything that I didn't ask about that you would like to say or share?
Mm. There is no death. I don't know. Oh, did I tell you about the another experience in the relics? This was so much fun.
Yes,
When
go ahead.
I was meditating in the relics one time, I told you about the Jesus lifting me up one. Did I tell you about the other one? There was this incredible, joyful, it's the most joyful vision I've ever had. It was Buddha and Doc and Jesus. It might have been the same time when Jesus lifted me up. And then all of them were dancing and swirling around the relics, all three of them. It was so wonderful. And and what a gift to be able to love, and love high consciousness wherever it manifests, and not think that I have to stay Christian or Buddhist, right?
Mhm. Yeah. And
That was fun.
yeah, and we talked about how the theme of the correct understanding of love has kind of been an organizing pattern in your life. But the other thing I think, and especially ever since I've known you in the past decade, that's it's right there on the pillow behind you, has I think it's joy. I remember very distinctly the first time I saw you virtually. I think it was a surrender group of some sort, and it was the first time we were doing it on Zoom. And I saw you, and we'd known one another from each other from before that on Skype and Facebook. And as soon as you saw my face, you just had this laugh and glow, and then I felt that. I felt it, it was almost like I felt your inner state and joy, and it was so striking. I was like, that's what joy is.
Yay!
And I'll tell you, in this, I think, story that I'm going to share, I might have shared with you before, but is it perfectly illustrates what you have meant for me in my growth. I think this was 2017. I had gone. I had a very difficult summer or winter, sorry, it's very difficult winter. This was the most difficult period of my life so far, and it was. I don't even know the exact reason for why it was so difficult, but something. It was as if something in my unconscious had gotten uncorked. I had just come out of a 9 month long z- uh, s- period where I'd spent a lot of time doing meditation retreats in Zen monasteries for my research. So I'd come out of that and I had a great time doing that. But once I returned, I went through this 6 months of constant barrage of thoughts and emotions and feelings and images, constant, even in my sleep. And it was very difficult. And I did dream analysis and things like that, which was very helpful. And it it happened for 6 months and it just went away of its own as I just sat with it. There was nothing else I could do. And then as the as winter was about to come again next year, um, I was in Columbus, Ohio back then. I was sitting by the river where I would go when I was very, very disturbed, and I would go and sit by the river. And I was sitting by the river, and the mind suddenly said, "Winter's coming again." And it associated winter with that 6 months of intense suffering. So it's like suffering might happen again. And I went into this, I've never in another time had such an experience. My eyes were open, but I went into this series of visuals that unfolded very quickly in my mind, and very quickly my inner state changed as well. And I I found myself, there was an image of me almost at the brink of death, dying, but the cause of death was like I was in a state completely, and this was the word that came to mind back then, completely bereft of love, completely devoid of love, and I was about to die because of that. And that was the realization that without love we die. And in that state, what helped me come out of it was in my state of completely being bereft of love. suddenly you appeared as an image, as an icon of love. And then when you came into the picture, suddenly it was as if I could breathe again. I had love again. I could access love again, and I gained life again, and I was okay again. And then when the visuals ended, the vision ended, and as I came to my current state back then, and I had the strength that even if winter comes again, even if suffering comes again, I can handle it. And in my life, you have been that. You have been that beacon of love and joy and what's possible. And I'm so grateful for that. So that was my long-winded way of saying thank you.
Thank you, Angel Boy. Yeah, love. That's the thing. that's how people suffer, because they're not seeing love. Yeah.
Right, right.
I know that river. That's the Firefly River.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. We took a walk together when you visited. Yeah, yeah. And
Oh, I love you,
and
Angel Boy. What a sweet and kind and loving story that was. That fills my heart.
so thank you very much, Sherry. And I'm so grateful we did this, and we'll see what comes of it.
It's long and it's got lots of sherry in it.
Well, that's exactly what we wanted.
Oh, well, thank you for asking. God bless you. I love
Yeah.
you.